It is time for our UFC 272 pre-fight breakdown edition of the Fight Club. I'm Efren, that's Brandon, and we have a lot to talk about as the UFC Octagon makes its way back to the fight capital of the world, where former teammates and now bitter rivals will clash. And there's a lot more than welterweight glory on the line, as these two warriors have dragged each other's names through the mud for the better part of 3 years now. Now, on paper, you'd think that they don't have much in common aside from the fact that they both hold 2 losses to the current sitting welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman. But the truth is that these two share more than the mats at American Top Team at one point. They were, in their own words, best friends, former roommates, and despite some more recent clarification, which we'll get to in just a sec, leading up to this fight, it was a bit unclear exactly what caused the rift between these two Florida bruisers. Thanks to an interview with Stephen A. Smith, yes, it hurts me to say that, we now know that this beef, well, Brandon, this is where it gets kind of funny. These super high-level athletes, these UFC superstars who are about to headline a huge multi-million-dollar pay-per-view sports event in a sold-out arena in Las Vegas, well, Brandon, they're beefing over $12,000.
Yeah.
I thought
that's a lot. That's like a quarter of your salary for a decent UFC fighter. So
that's like one fight without the win bonus for like your like preliminary fighter. I just thought it was kind of funny that that comes into context now, because I feel like they were both making a lot more than $12,000 per fight when they started to have their fallout. Because I mean, it was as recently as like 4 years ago. They were still good friends.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah. Anyways, how much money? What I want to ask is, how much money would I need to stiff you for you and I to be at each other's throat like these two gentlemen?
$85. I'd be on that ass for $85.
I shouldn't hate. I certainly don't have $12,000 laying around.
I'd pull up to your house like fucking that movie Drive with the fucking toothpick and the like fucking fingerless gloves, all just staring at you.
Oh man. So Maz Vidal versus Colby Covington are the fighters that we're talking about, if I didn't specify that in my little entry there. Maz Vidal is 13-15 right now, with 16 wins by KO and 11 losses by decision. And Colby is 16-3 with 2 KOs to his name and 6 submission wins and 8 decision wins. Was there any time during the public fallout between George and Colby that you doubted the authenticity of this beef? Like, did you ever think that like this was all just for show or like pro wrestling shit?
They were texting each other like, dude, did you see everybody's face when you said that to me? Or like, it seemed kind of weird. It just didn't seem right. And just knowing how manufactured their personas are, I think Kobe's is more manufactured than George's for sure. And it's such a weird thing, because when you're talking about the beef and the like over the money and whatever it was, I remember thinking, like, when I was driving over to, or driving back to get on here, like, it's so crazy that we're going to talk about this. And they're such good fighters. They're so, like, they have like great careers. They're so well, they're polished fighters. They're good dudes. They're good fighters. And we're talking about this, you know, it's so weird. But I guess that's like how you have to kind of look at things to sell pay-per-views in this case, because there's no belt on the line or anything like that. So, but man,
Dana did mention possibly putting the BMF belt on the line. He kind of seemed like he forgot it existed for some reason, and it's like, hey, maybe we should put that on the line. And I
last night I'll doing the line like, hey, BMF belt. Let's just throw that out there.
Kamaru Usman's just like, what am I, chopped liver? Like I didn't just beat that guy twice in a row?
Yeah, so. And that was the thing too, is like, it's another thing about the sport where this is like the highest level is being a numbered UFC event, main event. Usually it's a championship fight, or like super high level contenders where they were either just off of losing the championship and getting back in, or they're, super high level and it's just the collision course to get to that championship. These guys have no chance of beating Kamaru Usman. They have neither one of these guys has any chance in fucking hell. Not going, I mean, it could be another year or two before they even get a shot at it. And by then, I mean, they have no chance. So it's so crazy that they're headlining it off of this beef over 12 G's. It's insane how the sport is.
That kind of leads me to my next question is like, do you feel that given that both of their most recent losses were to the sitting champion and it was their second time losing to him, do you feel like a win for either guy in this scenario actually keeps them in the mix at the top of the welterweight division as contenders?
I don't think so. Basically, after this, whoever wins is going to be able to continue grudge matching it out in these like kind of niche type fights, like co-main or main events or headlining a fight night or whatever it is. I don't really think any of the, maybe Kobe could if like some accentuating circumstances, just because he's so close and it looked like he belonged in there with Usman in spots.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But where Masvidal he just doesn't, and it sucks because he's such a good fighter and he'll continue fighting for another few years and do pretty well. But there's no chance. He has no chance in hell.
So let's talk about what we think that this fight is actually going to look like. How do you feel like this fight is going to play out? Do you think that their the shared past as training partners at American Top Team is going to factor into this bout?
I don't think so. Just because they're such wily vets, both of them, and it might play out in a way where it's a little stale, at least coming out. But I don't think it's going to be like the one thing you can point to and look at and say like, oh, it's because he knew his training habits or it's because he knew what he did. Or I don't think that's going to factor into it as much as people would think. Or
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people kind of seem to overinflate sometimes. It's like, oh, they were former training partners. Someone's going to know something that they're going to be able to exploit to get the upper hand in a fight. When in reality, I think it mostly just boils down to they both probably know how the fight's going to go. Yeah. They have an idea of, where they stand. There's not necessarily anything that they can do differently about it because that other guy, especially if you've trained together as intimately as Colby and George have, they probably know how you're going to make an adjustment. You know what I mean? So all it might come down to is who does what better, and who's going to be the better conditioned, healthier fighter on the night. Because I think at the end of the day, Maz Vidal and Colby know who should win this fight. It's kind of like I'm leaning Colby. It's hard to picture him not wrestle fucking Maz Vidal for the better part of 5 rounds. That's not to say that Maz Vidal doesn't have a path to victory in this fight. I think he's a lot better of a striker than a lot of people give him credit for. A lot of people seem to just think that he's like a headhunter, but his kicks and his footwork is really, really sharp. He's doing a lot of good work with Ketel Kubis out there in ATT. Yeah. And I think that could pose problems because a lot of the guys, well, let's address the whole thing with Colby and his lack of wins at the top of the welterweight division over other current like long-standing welterweights. Right. To get to where George Masvidal is right now in the welterweight division, he kind of had to go through some of the somewhat newer crop of guys. I mean, there's obviously ear rape. There's obviously
I tried to do the fucking cover too.
I think the hand holding it made it worse.
Hand holding it closer to my mouth.
Well, anyways, obviously there's the Ben Askrens and everything, but so George Masvidal has been a lot more active in this division. He's fought some of the newer guys that Colby maybe has been sidestepping, and he's been sitting at the top of the division and not fighting. But I just don't really feel like that's going to make much of a difference here. I think Masvidal can catch him, but we've seen what it takes to put Colby Covington away, and even we saw that Kamaru Usman broke his jaw. And that didn't put him out clean. You know what I mean? He still wanted to fight. Like, they had to stop that fight. It was a stoppage, but I don't think we've seen Colby Covington put out cold. And I think that's what George Masvidal is going to have to do if he wants to win this fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these guys and the professionalism between the two of them, because you kind of talked about it with Masvidal's footwork and his sneaky good fundamental. He's so good at the basic fundamentals that he can kind of do that, take those flashier stances or do those things, because you can really tell it goes slow for him in there, because he's just done it all. I mean, he's fought on a fucking beach for fucking Bodog and all that shit.
It's true.
So I mean, he's done it for so long that he's not gonna be in a position he hasn't been in, including getting his jaw rewired. Like, he's done it all, and so he can see everything. And then on the other side, you have a dude who just, I mean, for all the perception of him or whatever it may be, he's extremely healthy. He's extremely durable. He's very good at he has a very good base, and he knows he's good at that base.
His gas tank is unmatched at welterweight. Yeah,
there's nobody that's gonna. I mean shit. We were watching that, or I was watching that fight with Usman, and he was hitting him with some shots, and then you can see it in Usman's face, like, what the heck am I gonna do to this guy? But that's a testament to how hard that guy works and how much he puts into it. And there's, at the end of the day, these two guys, they have these made up personas, and that's what we're talking about, or I was talking about earlier, where I have a lot of respect for these two fighters, believe it or not. Like, as the crazy shit that they say, like, for an MMA purist, how hard these guys work, what they've, like, guys like Maz Vidal have gone through to be where they're at now. Yeah, it's a lot of respect for how well these guys, how well trained they are too. They're going through ATT. They're a testament to that camp, because they were there when it wasn't the glitz and glamour of what it is now. They were there. They were like foundational people there, you know.
Before it was the who's who, the Ocean's 11 of MMA, like gyms and training part. Yeah, hasn't always been as much of an ensemble cast. One thing that kind of stood out to me a little bit as I was looking at both of their profiles and going over some of their recent fights is their records, and the wealth of experience that George Masvidal has, much more than Colby Covington.
It's insane,
dude. 35-15 to Covington's 16-3. Like, I totally forgot that Covington has, I mean, relatively speaking, so little experience compared to George Masvidal. Do you think that that's something that could play a factor in this fight, or somewhere that Masvidal might pull out some crafty veteranship that we might not expect? I mean, that flying knee that put Ben Askren away was, you know what I mean? That it just seems like history now, but at the same time, it's nobody saw that coming. Everyone thought would have been like, that would have been the most casual take to think that he's going to come out and flying knee Ben Askren.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes back to like what we were talking about, where how things just move slow, like how he just thought about that beforehand. Like, because I remember the interview that he did after that, and he was like, I was talking to Mike about that, and I just said, "Do you think if I?" And then they had video of him practicing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, dang, like, how do you know how to do that? Then how do you know in the middle of all of that, like, because like, even to this podcast, like, there's things I'm thinking about talking about. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm going to completely forget that even happened. This guy's going into a fight with an Olympic like wrestler, and he's like, oh yeah, like, I'm going to just throw that knee at him that I work, and it just worked perfect. And so being able to calm yourself, being able to like stay in the moment and do something like that, and to set it up the way he did, it just shows like the experience. Going against. Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I definitely admire both of their abilities to perform under pressure, in fighting and just the media. Colby Covington's shtick, it's not real. You know what I mean? It's an act. It's a gimmick. I mean, it might be a very, very amplified version of his actual personality. But you can tell he's not so great at it. You know what I mean? It's something that he's working on. And so even that is a lot of pressure, like consistently putting on that kind of facade and that kind of performance and going out and performing in the cage. Yeah. Without question.
It's like a caricature of what he thinks Chael Sonnen was doing back in the day. Like, it's like he's trying to draw it freehand. You know what I mean? Where he's not looking at anything, he's just trying to remember what it looks like and drawing it, and it's like coming out on the mic, and it's kind of charming in a way. It maybe now that Trump's out of office or whatever, it kind of like went from like, dude, this shit has like real life consequences, chill, to now it's just kind of like funny now. So but it's almost charming in a way now too. And then I almost like it when, like, looking through my Instagram, And like I know that Kobe thing where these hookers are going to be on the timeline with Kobe.
Hello,
He's gonna be
virgins and
wearing
nerds.
the Bang Energy chain,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm not going to use that site to bet, but that's cool. And like to see their faces, the chicks' faces, where they're just like, like the car show model. It's like smiles and stuff. But
Hope this
yeah,
guy's
it's
check
so
doesn't bounce this time.
yeah. But the thing I guess what you had said about Will Masvidal's, I don't think or his experience how will it factor. I don't think it would factor in as much um, in this case, just because I think what I'm trying to like get at is I think that they just they're able to put that aside and fight, like you said, like they're able to put things aside and get in there and do it. So I don't think the experience, and I think it may actually be a detriment to him. Just he might be caring, like seeing ghosts, seeing things, or remembering getting put in situations where maybe Kobe can get through that a lot easier in a certain way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of old footage of them literally wrestling around in their apartment and training at American Top Team, where too much of it is of Colby Covington just ragdolling him, ragdolling George Masvidal, for me to have any comfort like putting any money on George Masvidal in this fight.
Yeah, and that has to go for it too. But um, how much? It's just so weird. That's no one's gonna know, but those two guys. Like, and you made a really good point earlier about like they both know what's gonna happen or what should happen. They both know it. They're not gonna admit it. They won't admit it afterwards. They may be later, like way down the road, in like a mini documentary that they do or whatever. But
I would probably give a slight edge. Not that it's going to make a difference in the outcome, but I could give a slight edge to George Masvidal in this scenario, because I think also having Colby Covington's former coaches still in the room with him, guys who know Colby Covington very intimately, who their entire
right,
work is building a game plan to beat somebody, that could definitely benefit George Masvidal a little bit, more than just their actual shared time one-on-one together in the gym. Just because of the fact that where Colby Covington's at, he doesn't necessarily have ex-coaches of George Masvidal to fall back on.
right,
So I think that's a little bit of a feather in George's hat that he could probably use or tap into, or somebody could have potentially used or tapped into. But yeah,
right.
like a broken record, I already said, I don't really see it going very well for George Masvidal. In fact, it's still like the memory of George Masvidal wearing Demian Maia like a backpack for 3 rounds
Yeah,
straight, just getting completely shut down. Credit to him for not getting like choked out in that scenario. A lot of
yeah.
lesser fighters would have. But we've seen George Masvidal get completely shut down by grappling, which is why, in hindsight, I don't blame anybody for picking Ben Askren over him. If anybody looks back at that pick with regret, don't. Ben Askren was the pick in that scenario.
Yeah, and he's so good. I mean, we're ball washing both of these guys, but he is so good. But when he's bad, he's bad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's tough to watch, dude. I remember watching like in Strike Force and shit, and it's like, dang, dude, what the hell? And then I remember when he came into or was in the UFC, and I was like, dang. Oh man, I like the last few fights I had were like old Strikeforce stuff, and I think it was good that they had that merger for him. I think that was probably one of the better things that could have ever happened to him was that merger. Because from what I remember, and I could be completely wrong, but there's been a little bit going on in the world, so where like my memory doesn't go back that far to
Right.
Strikeforce as clearly as I'd like it to. But from what I remember, like the memories I had were like, man, this guy was on his way out like back then. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and now he looks almost prime now, like, or maybe on his way out of this prime, but
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
And
crazy to say.
yeah, a lot of people call him Journeyman George and think it's a more
Yeah,
apt nickname than Game Bread. Game Bread is a perfect nickname, and it's actually one of
yeah,
my more favorite nicknames in
yeah.
the
It's a
entire
good
game.
one.
It's a really really
It's
good
a good
nickname.
one. Yeah.
But
Man, this whole this
just
whole
straight
freaking
ball washing. But Journeyman George is so fitting. He had that stint in Bellator, and
Right.
Or also the image of him being inverted triangle, like armbarred and put to sleep by Toby Amada is also burned into my
Yeah.
memory. So George Masvidal is a guy who he can lose in style, like you said.
Yeah.
Like when he loses badly, and
Yeah.
some of them are a little bit more memorable than others. That's for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. No, you're
So
right, man.
I think we can go ahead and transition into the co-main event in the evening. There was a little bit of drama unfolding throughout the week. Rafael dos Anjos will be fighting Renato Moicano now. As we know, after RDA's original opponent, the 11-1 surging contender Rafael Fiziev, maybe not everybody will agree with surging contender, but fell
I
ill
would.
to COVID and was forced to withdraw from this bout. There was a lot of rumbling about around Instagram and the MMA media sphere about possibly having Islam Makhachev fill in on extremely short notice, since that dude just fought a week ago, well, just under a week ago, and we'll talk about that fight briefly before we wrap up too. And both parties had verbally agreed on public on Instagram. It seemed like everything was set. Both guys were down. They've been matched up to fight each other multiple times in the past, at least 3 times, just from taking a glance at Rafael dos Anjos's topology page. But alas, it was not to be. Instead, we get Renato Moicano, and he's coming off of a very relatively recent win over Alexander Hernandez that just happened over last month at UFC 271, less than a month ago.
Great.
So he's surging.
Yeah.
We had a potential really fun fight. Well, a really exciting fight because of the inclusion of a potential inclusion of Islam Makhachev, who everybody is kind of looking at like the uncrowned champion at lightweight, like a guy who's just kind of a shoo-in. So it was a lot more potentially exciting to see that guy back in action, especially 1 week after having performed. We know a lot of guys in this business have made their name off of being that game and that ready to fight,
Right.
and on short notice, like the Kevin Hollands of the world, the Hamza
Mhm.
Shemaevs. But instead we get Renato Moicano, and that's not bad. But I feel like on paper, Rafael dos Anjos versus Renato Moicano is actually a little bit more of an interesting of a fight. Maybe not as much top of the bill marquee interest, but this is a fight that I could see Rafael dos Anjos having a chance in. What do you think?
Yeah, I know he definitely does. And um, to ball wash Masvidal a little bit more, like if you take RDA's uh, resume and you cherry pick Masvidal's and like kind of throw those together, that's a fucking wild ass career between these two guys, and they'll fight anybody, and they're down for that check. Like both of those dudes, so that's pretty cool that these two guys are fighting. But yeah,
We
he definitely does. Moicano looked like really good, and to my detriment, I lost money because he looked so good. But that was one of those where he looked. I mean, I wasn't mad. I mean, as mad because it's just like, damn, he looked damn good with those hands, and so against a guy like RDA, you're gonna have to pack that, and he looked awesome. But I think this is a between if it was gonna be, and it'd be interesting to know how it all played out with like what really did happen, where the negotiations broke down, or if it was the sanctioning bodies that didn't allow it, or how that worked out. But
It's
um,
a good point. It's not something I thought about, like who said no in this scenario, because they both even
yeah,
started jabbing each other publicly again, like don't run away this
yeah,
time. And less than 24 hours later, we found out that at least one of them said no,
I
or
don't
potentially the
think it.
athletic commission. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't. If it had to be between one of them saying no, I don't think it would be RDA because RDA just doesn't say no,
that's true.
and
Yeah.
he can prove it. He said like I don't say no to you, and then you have a guy who's on a career trajectory, um, in Islam where it's you can tell they're like doing this. I mean, it's cliche to say it, but they're doing the Habib thing where it's kind of like cherry picking and being opportunistic. But how much is that people kind of just not wanting to fight him either, or not saying yes behind the scenes that we don't know about. So
Mhm.
it would be really interesting to know what it came down to. I'm pretty sure they would say it was just governing bodies because he just fought in Vegas, and then, so they're probably going to say like you get a suspension no matter what, not in a bad way, but usually if you take any type of damage, they give you suspension, especially if you cut weight too. I know Vegas is pretty like about that how the weight cuts go and stuff like that. And they have that long history of boxing where dudes die from cutting weight and
That's a good point.
getting in there too fast and stuff. So
Yeah, it's really common to get handed a 3-month medical suspension for your standard fight if you take too many knocks in the head. I mean, it's automatic if you get knocked out, but yeah, there could be a lot more behind the scenes regarding how that fight did or didn't play out. As for that, Rafael dos Anjos hasn't competed in a little while. He hasn't been seen since November of 2020, and he's 2-4 in his last 6 bouts. But like we said, he's fought nothing but killers. You mentioned if you put both his and George Masvidal's opponents, like their record together, like we could probably make our entire career if we had access to interview all the people that just those two guys have fought. Like if they were all in a room,
really,
it's insane.
Yeah. And you could make a damn good like YouTube highlight reel if you just put those two guys' careers together, good and bad, losing and winning. With the names you can put in there, some of the stuff that's gone on in their fights,
or even just take a globe and put a dot everywhere that they've fought, every home country of all of their opponents. It would be those are global international fighters. I should mention of those in his record, he's 2-4 in his last 6 bouts going back to 2018. Those losses were to Michael Chiesa, Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington. A lot of people are kind of framing it like Rafael dos Anjos has, like, his better days are long, long behind him. That might be the case. He's probably, I don't think he's a better fighter now. He's definitely had a lot of mileage. He's 30-13, so really similar to George Masvidal. He has a lot of wear on those tires. But when you look at the competition and the guys he's lost to, do you feel like maybe that there's some potential to make some money on a guy like Rafael dos Anjos when he's fighting a guy who's relatively new? That's the thing too. I keep on saying relatively because Renato Moicano with a record of like 16-4 is not a guy who I would call this like fresh-faced up-and-comer by any means.
Yeah.
But when you compare it to Rafael dos Anjos' record and the fact that Renato Moicano has 9 submission wins, Rafael dos Anjos has only been submitted once in his career, and Renato Moicano has no finishes by KO or TKO. So what kind of routes to victory do you see for Renato Moicano here? How do you think he gets it done?
Well, and it's a 3-rounder too, where RDA can put something together in 3 rounds that's pretty goddamn spectacular. Like the 5-round, it'd be, if it was a 5-round fight, which this fight probably would never be, but in a 3-round fight, I think that it so favors RDA. He could just come out and just jump all over him real quick, and anything that's so. The route to victory would just be more or less some good takedowns and hoping for a good counter, and that hurts him, and then maybe just put it on him till they stop it. But he's not going to out and out KO him, and like you said, it's going to be damn near impossible for him to submit him. So maybe just getting some end of the round takedowns, like in the second, looking like halfway, chopping up the first round where it's either way, getting some good takedowns in the second and third, which isn't going to be easy with RDA. So, in and out of those scrambles and just catching a good counter might be the best way that he can do it. But
I'm definitely going to be looking closely at the weigh-ins to kind of see what Rafael dos Anjos looks like. That's something that weighed heavily on my mind about the fact that he's been out since 2020. I know that he's definitely had a bad streak with injuries. Those are a few of the reasons why he had to pull out of those Islam Makhachev fights previously. Like we said, he's not a guy who says no to anybody. So he's signed on the line plenty of times, but he's had to pull out more than a few times because of injury. So I'm really curious, like what injuries he had, what was really ailing him, and if he's, by his own admission, completely healthy coming into this fight. Because if he's 100% healthy and he insists that he hasn't been in some time, I think that there's we might be in for like a classic RDA performance. I want to see if he can bust a 42 punch combo like he did against Robbie Lawler against Renato Moicano. I could see a path for him to overwhelm Renato Moicano. I think this is a really exciting sleeper co-main event.
Yeah, and when, like we had talked about, when Maz Vidal, when he's bad, but when RDA is good, it's like
fucking amazing
in the fucking world. It is like, whoa, dude, wow. Exactly. It's beautiful to watch when he is like on his game, and that's so crazy. But and like how much is that? Like you were talking about the injuries and stuff, and what he just like his default carrying around, like what he's carrying around injury wise, you know, something that like those aches and pains or like just that what he's carrying around right now is like holding him back because he's just so naturally, he's just gifted and it looks so good when he's on.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brandon, let's kind of rattle off some of the rest of the fights. We'll kind of do this machine gun style a little bit, and we can slow it down if you have any important things that you want to cover about Edson Barbosa, Bryce Mitchell. Edson is 22-10-0. Bryce Mitchell 14-0, undefeated inside the octagon and undefeated in mixed martial arts in general. This guy's looking like a very bright prospect at featherweight. What do you think it's going to look like when Bryce Mitchell gets in the cage with Edson Barbosa, the veteran?
I don't think it's going to look like what the UFC even thinks it's looking like, where they're stepping stone Edson, like they kind of have, they seem to do. He seems like he's that guy at this point, and which sucks. You know, one like for as far as styles of fighting, the Edson Barbosa style of fighting is my favorite to watch. The Brazilian Muay Thai is my favorite to watch. The like the shogun, the high knee with like light on the back foot kind of shit. That's what I love. Just
soccer kicker leg kicks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my
torque,
God.
all the torque.
Sounds like a fucking bat hitting the guy's like side of his body, but and that's what you want to see. And like I remember watching him early on when he first started, and I was like, damn, this guy's gonna. And then he just looked intimidating. He's got a great physique, just comes in, but man, it just sucks how it just a couple of fights got him, and now he's in at this point. And but if he can beat Mitchell in this case, I mean, he can really. I think he can set himself up for a decent turnaround, but. Because Bryce is, man, he's not a joke. Like, you know, a lot of people get that Southern drawl, that Arkansas twang that he has, and they
write him off.
You fuck around and find out, and then that guy will twister your ass down to the fucking, to like. So Edson's gonna have to be careful, but I think the one thing that if he can keep him away from him and maybe hit him with some of those stinging body kicks, body shots early on to where it's like he doesn't want to get in too close to where he can turn it into a grappling match. I think Edson has a shot, but sadly, I think he might get grappled back.
Yeah, Bryce Mitchell has 9 wins by submission, and we've seen Edson Barbosa get controlled by the Kevin Lees, the Khabib Nurmagomedovs. I mean, fucking everybody gets controlled by Khabib.
Wrestlers,
we've seen him get shut down like that, and we've also seen a lot of cases where Edson Barbosa is just kind of he gets out of his comfort zone because the pace of the fight isn't how he likes it. You know what I mean? He likes to dictate a lot. I feel like it's kind of easy to crowd the kicker against Edson Barbosa because a lot of people know that weapon that he brings to the octagon. I mean, you mentioned some of his earlier fights when he came out looking like an assassin. I think his first or second fight in the UFC, or his first one that I saw, I think it was his debut. He finished a fight by a leg kick, and that was like one of the first times I'd ever seen that in MMA.
Yeah.
No, where he's like literally the other guys just keeps falling over. You can't even stand and take the shots anymore. It's like no. That was fucking must see TV to me. I was like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
But now, you know, people have figured that out for a long time now. Bryce Mitchell knows that, and Bryce Mitchell, like you mentioned, kind of treating Barbosa a little bit like a stepping stone here. On paper, Bryce Mitchell, at least as far as Topology's rankings, he is fighting up quite a bit in the rankings. Bryce is ranked number 18, I think I saw. And Edson Barbosa is ranked number 8. So, yeah, good stepping stone. I was kind of surprised to find out that Edson Barbosa is still in the top 10 at featherweight. Not that I don't think he's a tremendous fighter, but that's a division that's getting deeper and deeper every month.
It's kind of closing in on him, which is why I said if he's gonna do some shit, fucking, what was it? Was that 8 Miles? Like, if we're gonna do some shit, we gotta fucking do this shit now. Like he needs to fucking beat this guy's ass to move up. Like, as stupid as that sounds to say, like it's that simple. Like he has to like win pretty convincingly against this dude to get hit around. I think he knows that too.
and it's a style matchup that's kind of tailor made for him too.
Yeah. So, and if it was a grappler where it's like he's got to turn his career around, and he's got to do it this fight to get it going, you know, and like what the fuck do I know about turning your career around in MMA? But like it's just what it feels like. But for a dude who can just head kick somebody, and like head kick a guy who's a rising star and knock him out in good fashion. And the way that this card, you know, RDA and Moicano could go pretty stale. Colby and Maz Vidal could both be pretty kind of a snoozer. If he can put something together where he makes this in the pay-per-view, puts together like a highlight reel type of kick, which he's done in the past, you know, wheel kicking somebody or whatever it is, then he can kind of like put himself out there or back out there.
It's a good point. If he manages to stand out on this card specifically, you know, if the stars align, it's a tall order. I don't think there's going to be too many duds in the rest of this card. Even though you have a lot of guys who might be riding hype trains. Got you guys like Kevin Holland with Alex Oliveira. So there's potential for a highlight KO there. You know, we talked about Rafael dos Anjos and Renato Moicano. That's a tough one. Yeah, it's going to be hard for Bryce Mitchell to really come out and make a statement and look like a guy who wants to break into the top 10 at featherweight, because to do it on a night with a bunch of other heavy hitters, even some heavy hitters like Greg Hardy, who likes to spread the love around to both genres, Bryce Mitchell's going to have to take that exciting, dynamic Muay Thai fighter and put him on his back and kind of disappoint the crowd a little bit. So it's tough. I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because I think they really like Bryce Mitchell. They like his qualities. I don't think there's any mystery there. The UFC's kind of getting behind him, and I think they were making a lot about his whole move towards Reebok when they were still had to deal with Reebok, about Bryce Mitchell getting his camouflage camo shorts and shit.
That camo is badass.
Yeah,
that's just badass.
And that's kind of how he got on a lot of people's radars, by just speaking up about that. Like, sometimes you don't have to do a whole lot. You don't necessarily, like, I get disappointed when fighters don't have anybody to call out in their post-fight interviews. That's something that, like, kind of Chael Sonnen has kind of like banged into my head. Is like, guys, this is your moment. You worked so fucking hard to get here. You managed to get a win. You're standing across from Joe Rogan inside the cage. There's potentially millions of people watching you via, you know, pay-per-view and streams. Like, call someone out. Let them know when you're going to be, you know, potentially on TV again, who you're going to be fighting.
Or say your balls are hot.
Or say your fucking balls are hot. Yeah. But in other cases, it doesn't take much sometimes to be memorable to certain demographics of people, and just demand that a clothing company provide you with camouflage shorts. That's all it takes sometimes. Let's see. What else do you want to talk about? We have Kevin Holland, Alexander Oliveira, Cowboy Oliveira, Sergey Spivak.
Cowboy Oliveira almost got killed by a grenade.
Wait,
how insane is that?
Enlighten me. When was this?
In real life.
Oh,
in real life, someone threw a grenade, like was trying to kill his cousin, or he was with a family member, and some guy threw a grenade at him, and like he's been dealing with like coming back from the injuries from that. And,
wait,
like,
so this is recently?
This is pretty. I mean, as recent enough as a grenade attack can get. I mean, I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it if someone tried killing me with a fucking grenade. You know?
Yeah, that'd be a story I'd be telling a lot.
Yeah, like, when did that happen? I saw that. I know that crossed my mind, because I saw him when we were going through this card, and I was like, the guy that almost died from a grenade. Let me see. Who was that?
2018, Alex.
Yeah.
So much more recent than I thought it was going to be.
And he's like been dealing with like issues from that. Like,
Alex Oliveira injured by grenade fragments in Christmas Eve incident in Brazil. UFC welterweight Alex Oliveira suffered a bizarre injury on Christmas Eve in Brazil. Went to go buy gasoline for his mother's car Monday night when he saw members of his family involved in an altercation.
Gasoline, huh?
One guy came up, pointed a gun at my nephew's face, and that's when people started pushing each other. It seems like there was quite a bit that went down before someone pulled out a grenade. I'm not going to read the whole article, but that is insane. I didn't know anything about that. He gets to join MMA's like I Almost Died Suicide Squad.
Right. And some other crazy shit with MMA happened with someone who we both hold fond to our hearts. Killed the guy himself. What the fuck? What did they say? Like the UFC's like deteriorating into Gotham City. Wild. Fuck, dude. It's like turning into fucking Batman, dude.
Yeah, Cain Velasquez. For anybody who's wondering, did he get arrested, or was it this morning, or was it yesterday? I'm already.
I don't. I know. I just remember, like, I was away. Like, I try to put my phone away to like actually engage with my family and be like present when I'm speaking to people. And I just threw my phone off, and I go and I sit down, and we're just watching a movie, all of us. And it's like time for bed, and then I kind of like forgot about it, and then I get a link from you, and I'm like, oh, okay, the show, blah blah. I open it up. Hey, Cain Velasquez fucking ran a guy down and tried killing him, and I was like, what the fuck? Of all the crazy shit in your head that could like be spliced together and put in my head, like that kind of like read, like I was like, am I having a stroke reading this? Like Cain Velasquez tried killing a guy.
Of all guys, he's by all accounts a big softie, like
Yeah.
a real sweetheart of a guy, personality wise.
Yeah, and being a sports fan and an American sports fan, there's just like, and like one of my childhood heroes is like Barry Bonds. So it's like I'm like, man, all these guys, dude, like Jon Jones and all these guys, like, just fucking be normal, dude. But then it, like, as the story's like progressing through, it sounds like, oh, this guy's like, yeah, he's great. So that's cool, and hopefully he gets out soon.
He's a really, really cool guy. The guy that he put a bullet in, or allegedly did some stuff that maybe we don't even want to mention on this podcast because it's all unconfirmed. And
I'm just not mad at why he did it, though.
Yes, yeah. If whatever suspicions that Cain Velasquez was going on when he decided to procure a weapon and chase this man down and shoot him. Now that we know like what he was suspicious about or what he thought was the situation, is definitely a real noble way to a reason to shoot somebody.
Dude, imagine, and then just like running down, like that would be so crazy. Getting run down by somebody,
finding the guy,
and then it's Cain Velasquez, and it's like, oh, he's gonna be, whoa, he has a gun. There's no way out of this.
Oh yeah,
there's just no way out of this for me, dog.
Mine and yours first thought to be we'll go like, okay, he has horrible knees. He's never gonna be able to catch me. Like, we should be totally fine. This guy's knees are fucking shredded toast. Fucking yeah, that guy fucked with the wrong bloodline. That's for sure.
And then just loading up the gat with brown pride all tatted on you.
Imagine how crazy it is for Cain Velasquez too, because like there's one thing where it's like, I mean, we don't know. It's all speculation on our part, but there's one thing where you go, I'm gonna grab my gun and I'm just gonna drive around. You know what I mean? Maybe I know what happened. Maybe I know I shouldn't do this. Maybe I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do it, but I'm gonna make sure I have the option to do it with me.
Yeah.
And then you see the guy, and I just I couldn't. I'd like to know, or I wish I could have been a fly on the wall inside Cain Velasquez's car or something like that. But right now he's being held without bail, and he has a court date set for
Wednesday. What was he listening to too on the way? Like if you just hear the trumpets, and then it just like when the keys go off, and then the banda music just cuts, and then it's like
the banda
bitch. You're like, what, bitch? And then it's Cain Velasquez closes the Escalade door. You're just like, oh, fuck. Oh, man.
So, if Cain Velasquez had every reason to do what he did, or if that's all true, free my boy Cain. Yeah, don't let him.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, get him out, man.
We should Michael Jackson that trial, dude. Like, just go out there with the signs, like, just like, we love you, Cain. And then I'll wear his mask, his, like, luchador mask. I'll totally do that, dude.
It's a shame that he didn't have a longer career in pro wrestling, man. He really surprised me. When he went over to pro wrestling, I thought he was just going to be like a kind of just a like big bruiser, nothing really simple. The kind of guy who throws a big boot, shit like that. But he's fucking
the big the chest chop.
Yeah, but then I remember like
Yeah.
those guys are actually massive, like the Undertakers and the fucking Canes and the guys who throw
Oh
that kind of
yeah.
shit. Cain Velasquez like is a heavyweight by UFC standards, but by pro wrestling standards, he's a pretty average sized guy.
Yeah.
But you know, dude, even with his fucking liquefied knees, he's out here like doing somersaults and shit like that. Like I was
Yeah.
surprised to see that he was the Rey Mysterio type wrestler. That was
Does
fucking.
he did he ever do the midgets like the little person? Sorry, the little person fights where like have you ever seen those where it's like two little people on one luchador?
Too little.
That's pretty sick.
Or
That'd be pretty cool.
two guys in a trench coat stacked on each other. No, no, you never.
Yeah, all arms around his shoulder.
No, no, he got skyrocketed closer to all the actual legit pro wrestling promotions. He got speed tracked. I
Yeah.
don't think he wasted any time in the regional midget pro wrestling scene.
He's in Albuquerque all fighting some little person with a devil mask on.
So running down through this card, Sergey Spivak versus Greg Hardy. I don't really care about this fight. I'm not going to give Greg Hardy any attention. Fuck Greg Hardy. Okay? Do you think this might finally be Greg Hardy's last UFC fight, and hopefully at the very least his last main card fight?
I don't. I think ESPN getting involved in the MMA game is what really like saved or put his career because they're just like you were talking about Stephen A. Smith earlier. Like guys like Stephen A. Smith love guys like Greg Hardy because it just you can take the moral high ground. You're a shitty person,
Mm-hmm.
but you can take the moral high ground on somebody. You can kind of like kick them on the way out.
It could be a whipping post for you.
Yeah, and there's like cut scenes and just takes on top of takes from years and years ago when he played with the Panthers and then he went to the Cowboys and then now it's like now he's fighting. There's just you can get all the like people from under a rock to talk about him. You know what I mean? And it's just so gross to me, man. I hope he gets his ass whooped, but he might actually win this fight, which
Sergey Spivak is the kind of guy who loses to dudes like
right.
Greg Hardy, even though he should have the
Oh,
advantage. But
he's
Greg
a
Hardy,
2-1 favorite,
yeah,
right? Spivak is.
I don't have any of the betting lines open in front of me, but he's number 15 ranked heavyweight in the world according to Tapology. Sergey Spivak should be a favorite, I think, but Greg Hardy has the kind of power that can equalize a fight in short order, especially among heavyweights where dudes get sloppy when they get a little bit tired, you know, halfway through the first round. But I think Sergey Spivak's better than that, so I'm a little hopeful. Here's a fight that I really want to talk about, actually. Strawweight action. You know, I want to talk about my strawweights. Marina Rodriguez, 15-1. That was one defeat in the strawweight division that I actually thought that she won. Versus Yan Zhang at 13-2. This is the Yan Zhang is ranked number 4 at strawweight. Marina Rodriguez is, according to Tapology, ranked number 10, but that must be a mistake.
Wow.
She's definitely ranked at least 4 or 5. This is pretty much like the 3 and 4 or the 4 and 5
Right.
versus each other. And I think that this is going to be a really exciting fight. I've been kind of following Marina Rodriguez's career since she got started in the Contender Series. She's a really exciting fight. I could draw a lot of fighter. I could draw a lot of parallels to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. It's the easy comparison. She's that Brazilian Muay Thai fighter, banger. Had her crowbarred it.
We could have talked about her talking about Kobe and talking shit on Kobe. Did you see that?
Yeah. And she said all that stuff before about him, like bringing his skanks into the gym and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's fun stuff.
it's so funny because like for me, she's like it's so like it when I listen to her in interviews, it's like have you ever like read Instagram in a different language and it says C translation and then you wait and you read it? That's how like she speaks English.
Yeah.
And I think in my head or like in her head it's like super profound, and then speaking it in Polish is probably like she's just like wordsmithing it. In all likelihood, I wouldn't know. But then when it comes out in English, it's like, what'd you say there? What
Did you say you're a really tough competitor?
yeah, it's like, golly. And then I was just thinking about that. That's exactly how it is for me when I hear her in interviews. And like, you can't blame her like for trying because she really like puts herself out there and she wants to like to grab the mic and run on it. But it was just so. I was listening to that today, and it's like, what'd you say? And like, I think I know what she said, but like, I don't like those are words, but
I
like,
think,
so
yeah,
it's so crazy.
the emphasis on the words is in the wrong spot sometimes
Yeah,
and stuff. I think it's fucking adorable, actually.
yeah.
I think
I mean,
that's
a
what
lot of
I,
people would
yeah, really
find it
liked about that
adorable.
fucking Slavic girl accent, or the well Baltic in her case. I think she
Yeah,
learned. She said she learned most of her English from watching cartoons in Thailand when she was training over there as a teenager.
that's badass. That's like super villain shit.
Right.
Super villain assassin. Like, I watch Speed Racer, and that's why I speak like that.
So, anyways, going back to the bout that I was about to cover, Marina Rodriguez versus Yan Zhang. This is a really exciting fight. There's been a lot of movement at strawweight, but like as far as their rankings, but there hasn't been a ton that have been based off of fights being won. Obviously, you have like your Marina Rodriguez's and your Mackenzie Dern's, and to a lesser extent, you get your like Amanda Hebos's, your Amanda Limos's. Now I'm just naming fucking strawweights to prove that I can. But
Yeah, you're
they
just
got their
getting
key
deep
wins.
with WMMA.
But oftentimes, like you see cases where these girls jumped from like number 14 to number 6, in one fight, or because Claudia Gadelia just retired. Joanna
Right,
Jędrzejczyk got removed from the rankings like
right.
earlier, like late last year. So there's been movement, but it's actually I feels like it's actually been a slow moving division, and it's really really rare and a bit of a treat for me when we get two actually top ranked strawweights fighting, because it means movement
Right.
in this fucking division. It means finding out who Rose is going to fight next after her fight with Carla Esparza, because
True.
if you let her, Rose will sit on the shelf for a long time.
Oh,
That's one
here
of
we
my
go. Dude, the vitriol, dude. If you fucking let her, she won't fight. She'll run.
yeah, man. We need steady contenders. We need to keep feeding Rose. And for that, I'm really happy that this fight's going down. I don't see it going very well for Yan Xiaonan. Um, I thought Yan Xiaonan was a lot better than she was. And I saw her fight Carla Esparza, and then I saw her somehow almost armbar herself against Carla
Yeah.
Esparza. Both of these girls are complete fish out of water on the ground. No, neither of them are going to be looking to take it there. They've both had instances in their previous fights. Marina Rodriguez, even against Michelle Watterson, who is not somebody that you'd expect to be out grappling anybody, took her down in the last round of her fight and almost, or the fourth round of their fight, and almost completely turned it around and shut Marina Rodriguez down completely in a fight where she was dominating up until then. So they both have holes in their game, but it's just the way this fight's probably going to play out. Neither of it is actually going to come to fruition. They're both going to keep it standing. This is a fight that's going to play out on the feet, and I'm thinking that Marina Rodriguez is probably going to be getting a second or third round KO, and I think she's going to be challenging for the title next. But if she's smart, and this is where it gets exciting for me, if she wins and she gets that KO, like I'm predicting that she will, when she gets asked who she wants to fight next, she needs to call out Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I really want that fight to happen.
Yeah.
And if these
For
girls want
your
to,
fanfic career, too.
exactly, yeah. I need to add, like, I've already written it, but I just need to make sure that it comes true. No,
Yeah.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk responds to trash talk. She's done quite a fair
Yeah.
bit of it herself, but a lot of the girls in these divisions are more, they're kind of content to be a little backhanded or not really go that route. A lot of them just
Girls
want to
being
fight their way up
passive
the ranks.
aggressive? What?
But I feel like the fight is there. Joanna's already turned it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They, before this fight was booked, after her last fight, a lot of people were calling for that fight, just because it's a stylistic dream fight. They have a lot of similarities in their style. But Joanna's already turned it down because, kind of like some mirroring what's going on at the top of the welterweight division, she's being very very picky about who she wants to fight. She wants Zhang Weili or a title fight. She's not going to get a title fight, and Zhang Weili is not going to be ready till later in the year. I think this is prime time for Marina Rodriguez to really make a move and call out Joanna Jędrzejczyk and make that fight happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that, like, when you say it like that, as far as like a stylistic like dream like that, it would be really interesting, and it would kind of leave no, and especially I think if she comes out and thank God it's not it won't turn into like a grappling, like one person and the other person's guard for the
God,
way too
I'd
long.
be fucking shocked if that happened.
That would be, yeah. Well, if you get out grappled by someone named Karate Hottie, like you're you can't you can't you're not gonna be able to do anything on the ground. But
The
yeah, if it is a
PTSD
fight,
starts when they shoot for your hips. It just,
yeah.
yeah.
If they can keep it standing and she can win in a way that's like highlight reel win, and then convincingly come out and call out Joanna, that would be, I mean, that's awesome. And then that's a feather in Joanna's cap to go out and do it, and a win up against an up and comer, not just kind of like a legacy type fight and kind of backing into there goes that rotisserie chicken grease.
Greasy fingers.
But yeah, like backing into the title shot, which she deserves. I mean, she has a damn good resume. She's one of the best female fighters of all time. And we're talking about her in the middle of this. You know what I mean? As unseasoned as we are, we're still talking about her in this fight. I don't know.
It was always going to come up.
Happen.
Get me talking about straw weights.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. I think that's something that Joanna Jędrzejczyk definitely needs.
Right.
She's calling her shot or trying to call her shot. I think that at this point they've already demonstrated that they're not really willing to play ball with her and gift her just free title shots anymore. Not back to back. Not coming off of a loss that's almost 2 years old at this point. And to her credit, a lot of people call that picking and choosing and trying to name her opponents, but she's really only asking for the toughest fights in the division.
Yeah.
So I want her to knock off somebody who's perceived to be an easier fight, if that gets her the same result. So yeah, she's not going to get any closer to a title shot without doing something like that. And that's the last that I'm going to speak about Joanna Jędrzejczyk for this episode. Closing the book.
I wish that was true, but
there's another WMMA fight if you want to talk about it on this card. It's a really fun one too.
Yeah, go for it, man. I was gonna ask whether it was on here or just talking to you personally, like what you thought about this fight.
Which one?
The other WMMA fight you were about to bring up.
Marina Moroz and Maria Agapova fight. This is a really, really interesting one. Marina Moroz. And this is another one, too, where both of these were former American Top Team teammates and had a big falling out. I don't know if they didn't have as much of I don't know if I'd call it a falling out because I don't know if they were necessarily friends, but they were teammates. Maria Agapova, who got a really impressive, I almost want to say knockout because she knocked her out with a really nice overhand right, but she flew straight into a rear naked choke over Sabina Mazo. These are flyweights, by the way. And that was in October of last year. She's mentioned that she's changed up her game a little bit because she was getting really excited and it was causing her to gas out.
Yeah.
So
that happens though, that I think we talked about it in the last podcast, that like adrenaline dump that you get in these fights. And I know everyone's talked about that, but it's a real thing, man.
Yeah.
Like if you get too amped up, you can't control what's going on subconsciously, and all that adrenaline just dumps all over, and you can't get back from it.
Yeah, and she's been very candid, more than most, about the fact that that's actually been affected her a lot in her previous fights, and even in fights that she's won, which I thought was really interesting, kind of peek behind the veil. But she's fighting Marina Moroz, who is still training at American Top Team, who got Maria Agapova kicked out of American Top Team, alleging that Agapova was abusing drugs, was having episodes and being violent with other teammates, attacking people, and having all sorts of drug-riddled episodes. This resulted in Agapova being dropped by American Top Team. She now trains at a different American Top Team affiliate in South Florida also. But these two girls fucking hate each other. Maria Agapova has basically called her out after her last win over Sabina Mazo. Set this fight up exactly. It was never a question that this was the fight to make since then. Marina Moroz hasn't backed down from any of her allegations that Agapova was abusing drugs. And there's even a video of Agapova like accosting a man in his car because she thought that he like stole her phone or something. Ooh. So yeah, look it up after this if you haven't seen it.
I will. I'm
it's
going to.
It's something. I was definitely like I was prepared to kind of like play devil's advocate for Maria Agapova and be like, well,
Yeah,
there's a definite language barrier there,
true.
and maybe she has some, some anxiety issues or whatever. But that'd be a fucking speculation on my part.
Right.
But she's denied that a lot. Myrna Moroz did an interview with Mike Heck from MMA Fighting recently. I follow their work a lot,
They do good
and
stuff.
he said that they did like maybe a 30-minute interview and that he just can't even air it. Like they
This is like that. Like if you've worked in a situation where it's like a co-ed type of job, in an office job, and then the two girls that don't like each other, and they're like kind of like borderline hot, each of them, and so that they're kind of like grappling for a position, and then they're like all mad, and then the bosses take them in the office, and then one of them's just not there, but like in a different spot in the office, and no one knows why, and like two people kind of do know why. That's what this is like shaping up to be. Like that's what it sounds like to me. Anyway, I knew this was going to be a good fight. I had heard about that that rivalry a little bit, but like having you kind of like break it down for me and put it into perspective is like, this
yeah.
is good.
Marina Moroz hasn't backed off from any of the shit she's been saying, and I want to message Mike Heck and be like, hey, send me that though. Let me. I want to hear, because if you
Culture, bro.
had for the
Come on
culture,
now.
yeah, if you had 30 minutes of content and she was talking so much shit that is so bad that you are just literally opting to not even air it. He said it will never see the light of day.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so intrigued by this fight. I don't actually know a ton about Marina Moroz, the fighter. I haven't seen too many of her previous fights, but I've been following Agapova's fight, and despite her fucking her propensity to get overexcited and gas herself out, 'cause she comes out to
Yeah.
the cage like dancing and shit. It's a bit much.
Right.
I'd like to see if she's going to be able to make Marina Moroz eat her words. I think this fight has more beef on it than the Colby versus Maz Vidal fight, if I'm being honest. It's just
Yeah.
a higher profile
Actual
like fight.
beef, like
Yeah.
real beef, not manufactured. Like these people just don't like each other.
Yeah.
Because like when Kobe and Masvidal are done, I would bet that they're gonna hug each other and they're gonna do that whole thing like it was just for the fight, man.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like
We've seen Colby drop the act multiple times. I mean, he doesn't
yeah,
try and do it very outwardly and make it obvious, but I mean, he did that with Usman. Everybody kind of like heard the adjusted audio where he's like, "Hey, man, I'm just trying to sell it, right?" Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But okay, so completely aside from, and this is gonna be an out of nowhere question, but regardless of gender, regardless of promotion, top like who is your let's do top seven. Who is uh, Ifrain's top seven pound for pound fighters as of today? And they don't even have to have the resume. They don't even have to be champions. Like I was thinking about that because we're talking about Islam and like some people just love that guy, but he doesn't have the resume. But I do think he could be a top five pound per pound fighter, and I think he has that talent and he's good enough to be that,
Mhm.
right?
There's
And
guys who just pass the eye test where it's like,
yeah,
I
you
don't need
just
to.
kind
Yeah.
of know it. Yeah, I don't need to see you beat the shit out of everyone. I can just tell, dude.
Mhm.
So like, and I was thinking about that on the way because I, as stupid as it sounds, I think I don't think you're gonna find five guys in the world better than he is
Mhm.
right now. I mean, you probably could, but he's pretty goddamn good.
With
And
the momentum that he has right now, I
yeah,
think momentum
right.
is a lot in mixed martial arts, and yeah, I think you could have all the skills in the world, but you need to go out and make it happen on a regular basis. Also,
Right,
and he might
right.
not, like we were saying, you were alluding to, it's not against the absolute highest level of competition yet at lightweight, but he's got a ton of momentum behind him.
Yeah,
The
and it
Islam
just
Makhachev.
looks it just like you could take okay, so you could take LeBron James playing basketball against like a college team, and he's beating the shit out of them. But it just looks like, oh shit, he could do that to anybody. It doesn't matter that they're like 19-year-old kids.
Hmm.
He can do that to anybody, and that's kind of what it seems like with Islam. Or he can, it would translate if anyone was in there. He's not winning because of those guys are just there and he's doing it.
Yeah,
So
and
like
it's not
who
favorable style matchups.
yeah,
So for
exactly.
me, I would say Jon Jones. And this isn't necessarily in order. It might be pretty close to the order that I would put it in. But Jon Jones, Kamaru Usman. I would throw Islam Makhachev in there. I don't know if I would say he's at number 3, but he's in there. Alexander Volkanovski. So that's 4. Who else? I'm trying to think. You said they don't necessarily have to be champions. They could be in any division. Adesanya's there, and yeah, I'm gonna have to throw in Adesanya too. I have a little bit of like a hold up with Adesanya because we've seen him taste defeat more recently against a guy who in Jan Blachowicz, who everybody was expecting him to kind of like step over and just go and claim a fucking double championship really fast, but that was at a different weight class. And even though, you know, we say it like, oh, he laid out the blueprint, it doesn't, like, he's had what 2-3 fights since then, and nobody else has been able to just do what Yan did either. So I'll give it to Israel Adesanya. So that's 5 now, right? I said Jon Jones, Israel,
because there's going to be those 2 guys that are like should be there. There's some people's number 1 and some people wouldn't even be in the top 5.
So let me just kind of recap. I've said Jon Jones, Kamaru Usman, Volkanovski, Makhachev, Israel. So there's 2 more. I think, let's see. Bantamweight is... Shit, I'm blanking out. Peter Yan.
Peter Yan's got to be in there, dog.
Peter Yan's in the top 10 for sure. He could definitely creep his way into the top 5 really easily. There's no shortage of guys for him to just completely build his legacy on at that division. Right now, obviously, with all, and you know what's fucked up? It's Aljamain Sterling, which is why it's like it's sitting there with an asterisk in my head, and I was kind of faking myself out about who the actual champion is. Peter Yan is close. You know, you're gonna call me.
He's an eye test guy for me, Peter Yan. That's like, damn. Dude.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's not necessarily. It's about who I've already seen him do it against, and you just know that those skills are gonna carry over. Super underrated boxer too, like one of the best boxers in that division.
In the pocket, there's really no one better than that guy.
Before Amanda Nunes lost to Juliana Pena, I would have definitely thrown Amanda Nunes on there. Obviously, it's. You know, I'm the fucking biggest WMMA mark, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the competition she was fighting was on par with some of the other guys who I've already named.
Right.
But, I mean, no matter what, still, you're doing it in 2 divisions and you're absolutely fucking cleaning out, you know, both divisions. She would have been up there. Somebody who I can't give it to, but I'm tempted, or I just want to bring up just to talk about it. Kayla Harrison passes the eye test for me.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
There's nobody for her to build her legacy on. You know what I mean? There's barely a division for her to fight in. So that's one that we might never really, really know. Like, was she really that good? Because if she was just 20 pounds lighter, we could really see her fucking back it up, you know? That's a tough one. So, who else? Oh.
Maki over in Bellator?
Cyril Gane. I think Cyril Gane is fucking one failed ankle lock attempt away from being UFC champion right now. That's a tough one because that's a guy who like I was really, really on board with and on the bandwagon also, and he passed the eye test for me also. But if you would have told me before that fight with Francis Ngannou that he was going to be walking into the cage against Francis Ngannou, who had a fucking 3 torn ligaments in one of his legs and had double knee braces on and shit like that, like I would have been like, oh, this is going to be an easy night of work, and it didn't go that way. So that's one I have to take off. That's like he passes the eye test, but just that recent of a loss like that, I can't put him on there. Who are yours? What is your top 5 to 7 look like?
Would be Usman would be first.
Oh, sorry, Hamzat Chimaev. I totally forgot about Hamzat. That guy passes the eye test.
Oh yeah, he's an eye test. All first team, all eye test.
Merab Dvalishvili. That's my number 7. I'm done.
Ooh.
did I snipe one or what?
Yeah, you just put that in my head. That wasn't in there. I probably still wouldn't put him in there, but I had Usman was first. I had Adesanya second, just because I just don't. He's just so good at it. And like what your argument about how Jan beat him or whatever, but I'm taking it just how they are in their weight class. And then if you put Adesanya in like Jan's with Jan's measurables, like Jan Blachowicz would be lucky to walk out of there alive. You know what I mean? But it's
true.
just you can't. It's just mass.
Yeah.
You know, you can't teach that. So
a positive spin to it is fucking Adesanya hung with a light heavyweight champion in a division that he hadn't even competed in mixed martial arts. So there's that. You know, he didn't get the win, but like to show that he's championship level at two divisions is saying a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of respect for jumping in there and doing it.
Yeah, Izzy, I'll watch your balls all the time, man.
Yeah. So then I would have Volkanovski right there, Peter Yan, Islam. Who is that? Where am I at now? So that's Usman, Yan, Volkanovski, Adesanya.
That's four.
That's four. So I said, wait, okay, so Islam, this isn't in any, so Islam, just totally off the rails on this podcast now, but
here I'll be a good producer and I'll start typing it up as you're saying it. So you said
my overall, this is in order, would be Usman, and then I would have Adesanya second. I would have Peter Yan would be my third, pound for pound. Volkanovski 4. I would put Islam at 5, Jon Jones at 6, and then Francis Ngannou 7.
It's a strong list. Jon Jones at 6. I was surprised to hear that, but I have to assume that is the general inactivity that's dropped him down that far on your pound for pound list.
And just, I mean, for someone who's watched that guy as closely as I have in the last, I mean, when you talk about like the Reyes fight and Thiago Santos, and
he did like underperform in those fights.
Yeah, and it looked off to me. It's just like, that doesn't look like it's ring rust. It doesn't look like it's mental. It looks like there's something there. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he like jumped, you know. And that's what's crazy. He's like that Michael Jordan effect where he's just like legendary, like his ghosts follow him into the cage, you know, of all the crazy shit he did.
Yeah, it's tough kind of quantifying Jon Jones though. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way.
No,
even though I totally did. It's hard to quantify him though, because I totally agree. Like there's those fights where it looks off, where you tell yourself, okay, bro, if you walked into that cage against anybody else or against this guy on that night, he would have fucked your shit up. But but at the same time, despite the fact that we both kind of like can agree that he's definitely looked off, nobody's ever put him in trouble that I can. Okay, Vitor Belfort with that armbar attempt, he you know, objectively had him in trouble for a bit, but we don't even fucking know what it looks like when Jon Jones really has to change his game plan on the fly and adjust and win a fight back that he's like losing handily or something. Like he doesn't have his Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Who did?
Just put him in the hospital, the first one, right?
That was a tough fight. That was a tough one. And I never felt, even like coming down to the wire in that fight, like I never felt like, oh, he's going to, you know, somebody's going to not answer the final bell for this fight, though. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is a close one, and Gus might win it by decision. But it was the hardest fucking fought decision that he's ever lost, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, but that's fine. I feel like I'm leaving somebody off. But and there's definitely guys like we're talking about Gegard Mousasi, who is like one of my favorite guys. I think he's super good, but I don't know if he's top 7.
Team empty balls.
McKee's great in
Bellator.
In Bellator as well. That guy's amazing. Just watching him, I like watching his fights a lot.
That's a guy who I would love to see them produce some kind of a trade for or something. They got to get him over, and I have a feeling there was a lot of people talking about him after his last fight and talking about like, oh, you know, because he mentioned it was I think it was the last fight in his contract, and he was going to be open to negotiations, or that he only had one more fight left. Everybody just kind of thought like, oh, he's going to be coming over pretty soon. I don't think that's the case.
For
Bellator
as
has.
little, oh,
Sorry,
but
go ahead.
I'm sorry, dude. But for as little as MMA fighters get paid, as comically low as they do, could like with like our MMA or like the MMA forums, could they crowdfund a buyout? And
To pay out his
could we do
contract.
that? That would be on par with like, could we go like, hey guys, if we could all give $10 to the Anthony McKee fight in the UFC fund, I'm pretty sure they could put up enough money to buy out his current contract and at least pay for him to get in, like, or pay his first. So like, look, Dana, we crowdfunded his fucking,
That's a
we
super.
crowdfunded his first fucking fight.
That's a super fascinating idea. I'm sure we could probably. I mean, it all
Because we
comes down
couldn't
to.
crowdfund fucking Mike Trout's fucking contract. Well, I know you probably don't know who that is, but it's like the highest paid, or he was like the highest paid baseball player. You're not going to crowdfund $250 million.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
no,
You just can't fucking do
exactly.
it. But I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure we could get 350K together. You know what I'm saying? Not and especially with MMA, like, and it's $10. You can just kind of fucking Venmo it over.
we. It's gonna make me. I was starting to think about titling our episodes, like
Yeah.
every episode, just taking something that someone says that is a little bit ridiculous and using it as the title for the episode.
Oh yeah.
And the crowdfunding trade acquisition of, like, I think that would make for a pretty entertaining title of the episode.
Isn't that that's like a stoner thought, but that like it seems doable, right? Like, fuck.
I think it's doable. We would just have to know how much it is. It totally
Yeah.
seems doable, but
And there's always a number. I mean, with these fucks, with fucking Coker and with Dana,
and he wouldn't be
money
burning any
fucking
bridges.
talks.
He wouldn't be
Yeah.
burning any bridges. All Coker gives a fuck about is does check clear? Okay, fine, cool. You paid your way out. You don't have to fight here anymore. Or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So that's pretty interesting. But is McKee going to be a guy seeing what Francis Ngannou is going through, and a lot of other high level fighters are kind of going through right now, trying to get paid from the UFC, or trying to get paid what they're worth. They're getting paid by the UFC.
To subsidize it.
Does he want to resort to fan crowdfunding so that he can go over into a more
We give
organization
them no choice.
that?
We give them no fucking choice. Hey, dog, fucking 750K.
Oh,
just fucking leave it
you're
there.
talking about just to be a free agent in general.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, to get him into the UFC, and then so I guess the way it would have to work is buy out his contract, and then come up with what Dana would probably pay him for a fight, right? And then give him some walking around money to like make it worth his while too, to like make him get out of bed. You know what I mean?
Say a good healthy 500K would probably be, once you factor in what maybe a Scott Coker might be offering for a signing bonus or something like that, or a renewed contract bonus.
Right.
I think, man, I was just thinking about something about that, and I'm
And then
blanked
if
out.
you can get like, so then you can get a bunch of just dudes to get $5, and then you can get like maybe a sponsor of his or someone.
Oh, I
like
want my
kick in
name on
and
his shorts. Yeah, no.
yeah.
If I'm paying even the slightest amount of money,
It better say Fight Plug like
I want the long. I want
somewhere around here. at the
exactly.
front.
I want it shaved into his fucking hair.
Golden Palace, like it says Golden Palace.
Yeah.
Like they used to paint it on them. But isn't that a crazy idea? Like crowdfund a guy into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what other things I'd want to crowdfund in mixed martial arts. Like who else would I want to crowdfund in or out of their contracts? You know what would be the most Dana White thing ever, though? Even if we did that, even if we pulled that off and got everybody to fucking throw in $5-10 here and there to get McKee out of his contract with Bellator, is if Dana White makes him go through the Contender Series.
Tuesday night. Just like, okay, there you go.
I can see
Fucking
that.
crickets at the Apex.
That's such a Dana White move. But yeah, I mean, he might also go the Michael Chandler route. Granted, this probably has a lot more to do with Mike Chandler being a fucking ardent, like, super company man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But It seems like they're either going to, based on how well that they think you're going to pull or draw fans, pay-per-view sales, they want to either throw you into the deep end of the pool and throw you into the fucking mutant shark tank right away, or they want to like disrespect the fuck out of you and make Roy Nelson go through the Ultimate Fighter house and fight Kimbo and shit when he has a storied career in the IFL.
Buzzsaw through all of those guys.
That was stupid.
That was so crazy. I watched that one.
I was about to say that's like the only one I watched also, and it wasn't for Kimbo. Nobody believes me when I say that. Yeah. It's because I wanted to watch Roy Nelson.
Drop. Oh, sorry. I was trying to finish your sentence.
I'm just gonna edit this so the outro music starts right there.
Yeah. Or like the only thing that Schaub has ever fucking told me. The only thing that I've ever fucking laughed at and like knew who he was talking about was he was telling that story about the guys who said something racist, and then they went and they thought Shaw was black. Kimbo thought he was black.
They were trying to get him with the crew to go get revenge.
Yeah. And then I can't remember who he was telling the story to, but it was like was it one of the fight companions? I think it might have been. He's telling that story.
Yeah,
they're like,
probably.
you know who it is. And like he writes the name down and hands it over to, I think it was Eddie. And I was like, it's Wes Sims. For sure it was Wes Sims. Use the N-word.
One of my funny, like one of the only things that the thing that always sticks in my head about Brendan Schaub is before his fight with Big Nog. Where like they used to do the pre-fight promos and stuff, like at the beginning of the pay-per-views, where they have the dude like in black and white talking about how the fight's gonna go and stuff like that.
With the opera, like on the back.
Well, Brendan Schaub's going on about Big Nog and talking about like how he's gonna retire him, and he's like, I know what they're all thinking. This fight's in Brazil. Everybody thinks that it's going to be a big showcase fight for their guy, and everybody's going to be celebrating and passing around acai, but that's not how it's going to go. I'm going to come and fucking spoil. I'm probably like saying this way better than Brendan Schaub even said it.
Yeah,
but,
you're probably, I was just gonna say, dude. Like,
but that line
about
passing around acai actually made me laugh, and then it made me laugh even harder watching him get knocked out in that fight, and just those two things spliced together.
He like fucking was like jumping out, like his soul came out.
I think that was Roy Nelson. I believe, or was it what's the other big boy who fought in the IFL? Big Ben.
Ben Rothwell?
Ben Rothwell. It might have been Ben Rothwell, actually.
Bang, bang. And then he was on steroids, and then you look at his body, you're like, you were on steroids?
Ben Rothwell? Don't hate on Ben Rothwell like that.
I love Ben Rothwell. No, I'm saying I love Ben Rothwell.
Sometimes it's just to heal up from injuries. These guys don't got the budget to get all fucking chiseled like that. I'm just kidding. I don't know why I'm defending Ben Rothwell so voraciously.
Whenever I hear that, I do that. You said that and then you've never caught it. You said Ben Rothwell's name. I think this is the third time, and then every time you say that, I do that. Like that, isn't that?
Oh, because of his thing. Yeah. Going back earlier to when we were talking about forced gimmicks and stuff, and how Colby's thing feels, obviously very disingenuous and kind of cheeky and cringy and stuff. He feels like a slightly more refined version of what Ben Rothwell was trying to do in the UFC for a little bit, when he was trying to be like well, I don't know, he had some kind of like fucking like Grim Reaper type character or something like that, where in his post-fight interviews he'd be like, ha ha, and then like he forgot to walk away, and they just asked him another follow-up question, and then he had to drop his act and just answer normally. It's like, dude.
Oh yeah, but post-fight party's gonna be at the Hard Rock.
Yeah. It's like, bro, if you don't have anything else prepared in character, you gotta walk away, man.
Get out of there. Yeah.
Fun fight, fun episode. We could probably wrap this one up here. Anybody watching this, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell.
Oh, we gotta fucking do that in the beginning.
What?
Because we're just assuming they're going to wait an hour and 30 of us talking about Ben Rothwell, and then go like, oh, I should probably like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you want to hear more hot Ben Rothwell and Brendan Schaub talk. Oh, also, we haven't talked about the Islam Makhachev and King Bobby Green fight. We haven't recapped that, so let's do a real quick recap of that. Islam Makhachev did what we all knew what he was going to do. We didn't do a pre-fight breakdown for that fight. Bobby Green was filling in on short notice for what was the whole situation? Who was Islam's original opponent? I'm blanking out. Beneil Dariush, of course. So it's kind of sad how quickly I forget about the original opponents that had to drop out through injury, because, well, Bobby Green just fucking flies in and rescues the whole show and saves the day, because that card was really shitty.
That guy,
yeah, like that card was grounds to be canceled if Islam Makhachev wasn't on top of it.
But I fucking sat through it and I thought it was a good card. I was fucking entertained that whole fucking night. I was. I mean, I don't know about you.
It was a better card. It was a better card to watch than it was on paper. There was a really good fight between Jeon Kim and Priscilla Cachoeira. That was, I think, that got fight of the night. Each of those girls got to take home an extra 50 grand.
I mean, early in the year, that was one of the better fights I've watched this year.
True. I can't argue with that. I'm pulling up the card right now. So there was more on it, but I want to just run down the card. There it is. Because I wanted to see who they were passing off as a co-headliner. That's right. Wellington Turman versus Misha Serkinov.
Yeah.
Arman Sarukian. That's right. Arman Sarukian got a really good win over Joel Alvarez.
Killer, dude.
That guy. I'm so excited for so many matchups with him at lightweight. If he comes back, since RDA has a new opponent and he's gonna be fighting, I really hope that they can match up Arman Sarukian and Rafael Fiziev when Fiziev's ready to go. I think that'd be a fucking fantastic fight, dude. Oh, so good. There was good fighters on this card. They weren't in matchups that really excited me very much. That's what it was. There's Josiane Nunez versus Ramona Pascual. That's a really interesting fight that took place at women's featherweight. Especially when you look at Josiane Nunez, she has the build of some of those midget pro wrestlers we were talking about earlier in the episode, and it just looks really weird at featherweight. Yeah. So that's an interesting character. But anyways, yeah. Back to the drawing board for King Bobby Green. He looked phenomenal in his fight. That was literally like a week, 2 weeks prior to that.
Everybody's fucking respect, though.
Absolutely.
Everybody's respect. He's gonna ride this another 3 fights. He's gonna get paid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's gonna. Hopefully, it amounts to like more appearances. You know, if not on ESPN or wherever it is. You know, getting like on the podcast, getting his name out there. You know, being able to kind of like build off of this. Hopefully he can, not just, you know.
He stepped up on really short notice, not just to walk inside the cage and challenge a guy in Islam Makhachev that, like we talked about, nobody, you know, a lot of people say no to Islam Makhachev. Yeah. So he went into it with really nothing to lose, but also really stepped up promo-wise. We saw all throughout last week, the UFC was releasing a ton of content and footage with him giving testimonials and interviews and stuff like that. That's something that they don't necessarily put guys through the ringer for, especially in situations like this where they're filling in on such short notice. Bobby Green's never really been that guy. This is his first main event, and he stepped up and he gave he produced content that was engaging, that I think that fans are actually going to connect with now that they kind of know him, heard his voice a little bit more, and that the UFC marketing machine has gotten behind him. I think there's a lot of really exciting fights in that top 15 of that lightweight division for Bobby Green going forward, and there's plenty of ways for him to stick around.
What's crazy is he could have had 3 months, and that same thing would have fucking happened.
Yeah, I think the fight metric numbers were saying that he landed like 9 significant shots or something like that. And I'm parroting this from I think what I heard somebody mention on maybe the MMA Hour or something like that. He technically gave, in this short fight where he completely got ran over, they were trying to say that he technically gave Islam Makhachev his toughest fight or his toughest round because he landed 9 significant shots, and nobody's done that before. But Arman Sarukian gave Islam Makhachev one of his toughest fights prior to this, and obviously, you know, Islam Makhachev has one loss inside the UFC too. He's been knocked out, so those metrics might like make someone think that this fight was a little bit more competitive than it was. It wasn't.
No.
But it looked like the guy who is the uncrowned champion stepping on someone in the like 15 to 20 range of this division.
Because his coach, Habib, had a similar situation with Regional Quinta.
Mm-hmm.
And Al was, oh man, you don't want to disrespect Bobby, especially for what he did, but I think Al was a lot, and he hadn't just fought, right? He stepped in on early, but he hadn't just fought.
That was a whole revolving door of potential opponents for Khabib that week. It was for a little while. It was going to be Max Holloway.
Kept throwing guys in there. And
yeah,
just like oh.
Yeah, Max Holloway was
like Max Holloway all drunk on TV, and they like caught him. Or what? What was that?
He was. I think they were saying he was having some trouble. He wasn't going to be able to make weight safely, and he was having like episodes or something like that. They were concerned about his health.
Yeah, it's so crazy, but. Yeah, like Khabib had a tough time. Like Al was in that fight, more so than Bobby Green was in it against, Islam. So Islam just like, that Cinderella story just not gonna happen.
Hey, he went in there and he did it fast enough so that there's no question about his status as a title challenger after the Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje fight wraps up. I think Makhachev is a shoo-in. I would really be surprised if they made him fight anybody else before they gave him that shot. I think that Charles Oliveira Justin Gaethje fight is happening in May, which gives Islam Makhachev about 2 months to rest up before he'd have to enter a really serious training camp to get ready for that. The winner of that fight. Granted, those guys would probably need some rest too, because that's probably going to be a war. It's going to be a ways out before we really start to cover or break down that fight, but I have a feeling that one's going to be a tough one to call, and it's going to be a fight that both guys are going to need to recover from for a long time. So Islam Makhachev might be waiting for a little bit, but I think he's definitely...
Or the part of the country that those couple of those boys come from just might not be there. Might be a lake.
All right, hard cut. Now that Brandon and I have had a long, detailed talk about the geopolitical conflict between Russia and Ukraine that we're not going to air here, we're going to go ahead and...
episode of The Simpsons, remember, with Classic Krusty? Where he's like, here I am, Councilman Greenberg from the Council of Foreign Relations. Let me be blunt. Is there a labor shortage? And then Krusty has the fucking... He has the fucking ponytail.
Exactly, man. So we don't get into trouble there. I have quite a bit of editing to do on this episode, actually. These greasy rotisserie chicken fingers are going to reach for the stop recording button, and we're going to put a bow on it. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like, comment, ring the bell, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will be back early next week to recap UFC 272 and talk about everything that went down at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Everybody have a good night, or have a good day, whatever the fuck time it is where you are. Bye-bye. See you, Brandon.